Okay, and we're live.
Hey, Nat. We're up for our second episode.
Yep. We're a little bit more relaxed this week.
That's right, exactly. That's right. And the last episode, of course, went for an hour, which was longer than we thought it would. I think we were sort of planning for 45 minutes, but it ended up going through an hour, and we were still going, actually, so it could have gone longer.
So, I think what we've decided to do is just have a subject matter each week and concentrate on that.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Which brings us into this week's subject matter.
Yes, which is
false allegations towards men when it does come to domestic violence.
Yeah.
Now, before we go any further, I do want to put in a disclaimer for myself. In no way, shape, or form am I an expert. Haven't gone to uni. Don't know vocabulary of long words where I need a thesaurus to look it up. I am just passionate about this, and not because anything happened to me. Just accidentally fell down the rabbit hole. So I just want to put that disclaimer in first, so people don't, I'm not a dumb ass when it comes to it, but by no means, shape, or form do I have a doctorate on my back wall.
Okay. It's interesting, actually, because, some people in our community were wronged by the system, and that's how they came into it. But there are other people who more or less saw what was going on in society and said, enough. And as you were saying, that's what happened to you. That's what happened to me too, where I actually I personally did experience some minor problems, but nothing like what so many men have experienced. But for me, it was all about saying, no, this is going too far. We need to speak up. And if I won't speak up, who will?
Yeah, I have to protect my son. He comes first.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Although he's 22 and 6'3", so I don't think we've got much protection. But it'd be like, my mummy's going to come and get you. Not going to happen.
Yeah, but I always say I'm doing this for the next generation of men and women, because they're both going to lose out if we don't fix this problem.
We are, because it's men are literally going their own way. They don't want to be in a relationship. Women are going to miss out because of what women have done in the past, especially when it comes to false allegations.
Yep.
Not only does it make it hard on the real victims, but it destroys men's lives, because, as I say, you throw shit's going to stick whether it's real shit or not.
That's right. As you say, it affects both. You've got the men who are accused, but also too, you've got legitimate people who have legitimate grievances, and now they've got to reach for a higher bar, to achieve a higher bar to prove their case, because of all the false allegations that are out there. And there are a lot of false allegations.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more than people realize.
Yes. So there's a lot of different studies on it, and because we know feminists are often keen to claim that it's 2% or not more than 8% and so forth, but there are some studies that claim that the rates as high as 90%. Okay, but there's one study in particular by a gentleman by the name of Eugene Kanan. And I've been able to find one of those two studies and read right through it. The other one's a bit more difficult to find, unfortunately. But Eugene Kanan went to a Midwestern American town and got unprecedented access to police records, and had an opportunity to re-interview the women who had admitted that in each of these cases they had admitted that they had initially made a claim of rape in these cases and then withdrawn it, or other sexual assault. And he found, even though we're talking here about only where the women had acknowledged it was a false complaint, 41% is what he found in the Midwestern town. And he did the same study in a Midwestern US university, and he found a rate of 50%.
See, I think this is the part that people, it's not only that they don't realize, but the ones that do realize don't believe it, or refuse to believe it.
Yeah, that's right. And it is true. If you're not sort of savvy to what's going on, it's very easy to find difficult to believe. But if anyone wants to challenge us on those sort of points, the copy of Eugene Kanan's study should be on Wiki for Men. I'm going to check tonight. If it isn't, I shall upload it. But I believe a copy up there. But that study is available. Anyone who wants to look at it can download it and read it.
Great. Now, the reason why I think we decided that this would be a good topic this week is there is an Australian actor who was one of the characters in Muriel's wedding called Dan Wiley. Now, he was found not guilty of assaulting his wife. Now, I'm going to read part of the article. And Tony Collette was also got dragged into this court case as a character witness.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I won't mention the wife's name, just because I don't think it really matters what her name is. I just think we need to show how far false allegations can go, and this went to court. So Mrs. B had alleged that their relationship deteriorated in 2020. She poured yogurt and flaxseed on her husband during a dispute one Saturday night, enraging Mr. Wiley. Mrs. B alleged that after she had tried to snatch his phone from him a short while later, he had thrown her against a wall and pinned her wrists to it before throwing her to the ground. She alleged that while she was on the ground, Mr. Wiley punched her and proceeded to pin her to the ground by punching his hands and her face and applying the pressure of his full body and weight. The magistrate said the complaint's account was the pressure was so intense that she felt her jaw was going to break. The magistrate questioned Mrs. B, evidence citing variations of her statements to the police and evidence in courts, photos of her injury, which he said did not support her account, and her delay in finalising the complaint to the police. He said photos did not show, the police did not observe the following day at a police station significant and observable injuries that would be consistent with Mrs. Bleep's accusations of the sustained vicious attack. So this comes from the Sydney Morning Herald, which personally for me, I actually find one of the more correct and less biased newspapers. So if you don't know who Dan Wiley is, I'm going to try and... Can we see that?
Certainly can.
Okay, so I believe from memory he was the brother of Muriel. And I find it very interesting. You know, Tony Collette came in as a character witness, and she said I've known him obviously since probably Muriel's wedding, if not before, and they've been friends since. Now, for me, that brought me to another actor that back in the 90s, there was a family sitcom show called Step by Step. It wasn't that good. It wasn't anything memorable. But there was an actor in it that played this dumb surfer dude, sounded like he was stoned half the time. But I can remember hearing back then that he got fired from his job for beating up his wife. Now, it was only last year I happened to stumble across a movie that he was in, and I was like, I wonder what happened to him. And I looked him up on IMDb, and as I always do, because I am a nosy person, I went into the trivia and I found out the truth. So I'm going to read, it's only a short little snippet. In January 2002, he stated on Entertainment Tonight in that his arrest for spousal abuse stemmed from trying to protect his kids from their mother's abuse. He says that his wife was addicted to drugs throughout their marriage and that she abused the children physically, which caused him to intervene. He also claims that his wife then sold the spousal abuse stories to various tabloids.
Yeah.
Today, Sasha has full custody of his 4 children, and his ex-wife is only allowed 5 supervised visits with the children every year.
Right.
So this actor, and again, I'll bring up a photo of him because I barely remembered what he looked like. So that's back then. I've seen an interview with him lately. He's 51 years of age and he's just full of muscle. I can remember hearing back then that he did get fired from his job because of spousal abuse. He didn't necessarily get fired from the spousal abuse, but because he was charged, and this is back in the early 90s, he was arrested for breaking...
breaching the order or breaching a bail condition or something?
Yeah. So the first time they let him out, the first time he was arrested, they let him out. He was arrested for 30 days, or went to jail for 30 days, and they let him out during the day to film the sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
The second time he wasn't allowed out, so they fired him. But they did bring him back, knowing that he was innocent for the last episode. But
Right.
This was back in the 90s, so for not 30 years, 20 odd years, I believed he was the abuser. And I've looked all over YouTube and I've looked all over the Google, and except that little snippet on International Movie Database, there is not a lot of what really went on.
That actually sounds like a good one for us to dig into a bit, actually, and we can put some stuff on the wiki about that, especially if we can find some other supporting documents.
I've actually sent him a Facebook friend request. I don't know whether he does talk about it, but if he does, I'd like him to give him an outlet to come and talk to it. He's extremely high up on the martial arts world. I've looked him up, as I said, I looked him up on YouTube trying to find something, and all I can see is all these great interviews. And when I say he's built like a brick shit house, he is a solid man. I wouldn't want to meet him in the dark alley. But from all accounts, he's such a gentleman, so lovely. But there was one interview where I scrolled down the comments because I was hoping to find something of a way to touch base with him. And there was one person who actually commented that he did beat up his wife. And it was, everybody jumped on and said, that's not the way it happened. I think there was a couple of times where he did hit her, but it was A, in self-defense, and B, to get her away from the kids. She, on all counts, she was a drug addict. And the proof is that he had his kids, 4 kids full-time. And even from the tiny bit of snippets that he does mention his kids, he raised them by himself.
Yeah, and that's a point that's often forgotten too, that he's fortunate to have been able to get the kids, but men typically leave without the kids. Women leave with the kids and men leave without the kids.
Yeah.
And it's often the case that if there's violence and there's a violent woman there, that men will stay to protect the kids because they're afraid of what will happen if they leave.
Exactly. And this is what I think is really important, that we do talk about this, and especially false allegations. He was fortunate enough that he did get the custody of the kids, so the kids were safe. And they're not just safe from the abuse, but they're safe from that, for lack of a better word, the drug world. I'm so far against drugs that I would sort of get angry if anybody brought them into my home. It was like, don't do it around my kid. I'm not having my kid in that world.
Mm.
I joke around all the time of, oh my God, I need a drink. But I don't drink that much because I don't want that around my child.
Mm.
And even though he's 22 now and he's basically moved out of home, because I program my body not to drink, when I do drink, it's a couple of drinks and I'm legless.
I'm a bit like that. I don't drink very much either, actually.
So when you do, it's like, woo!
That's right. Doesn't take much. Exactly. Yes.
And the other famous actor that it brings us to is Johnny Depp.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now I do have a photo of him on my phone, but I'm sure we all know what he looks like. I've followed his career since I was 19 on 21 Jump Street, and he was just, oh my God, so gorgeous.
Everyone in our generation watched that show.
Yeah. And I'm trying to rewatch it now on Amazon Prime, and it's like, I can't believe I actually like this show. But what he did with Amber Heard, now I've heard rumors today that she has been fired from Aquaman 2.
Okay.
I can't find anything to back that up.
Okay. It'll be something for us to look into as well.
Yeah, which I think after because he lost jobs, he was fired from jobs that he was actually critically acclaimed for. I don't think one person on planet Earth thinks that he did it. He abused her. I even know feminists who think he's innocent and that it's all Amber Heard. I'm currently, and I think I've only got 2 more episodes to go, watching The Stand, and she's in that, and part of me was like, I can't support this because she's in it, but this was all before the truth came out.
Yeah. And it's difficult when you find out something about an actor, and it may detract from a show. I know some people choose not to watch them at all, but on the other hand, if it's a show you really like, you may be stuck watching them, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. I won't. If anybody's watching it, I won't give it away. But it's only because The Stand's got so many actors in it. It's such a huge cast that I can not throw anything at my computer screen when I do watch it.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yes. And another person, of course, we want to talk about is Andrew O'Keefe. Of course, we talked about Andrew last week. It's come out since then that his lawyer has made an allegation that his former partner is the aggressor. That's the allegation that's been made. We obviously can't comment on that yet because we haven't seen any evidence and the matter hasn't gone to court yet. But it will be very interesting to see what transpires there. And given Andrew's background in White Ribbon Australia, it's very interesting that this allegation should now be made.
Yeah, because as we said last week, either way, he's screwed, because the people that would usually be on his side if it was false allegations and she was the abuser are sort of like, yeah, you've laid the bed. You and I both agree that, and we've discussed this, that if it does come out that she was the aggressor and he is innocent and it was either self-defense or pushing her out of the way or anything like that, we would be interested in touching base with him. There's a few people who don't necessarily agree with that because he has angered a lot of people.
That's right.
But as much as he has angered us, but you and I both on the same page of, we'll tell him what we think of him.
Yeah.
In a lot of terms than what's in my head. But also say, look, we understand what you've done in the past, and especially what you've done to what we're trying to do. It's in the past. Didn't like it, but let's discuss this.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah, there are definitely people in our groups that didn't like that suggestion at all when we both mentioned it in one of the discussion groups. But I mean, they respected our opinion on that. Yes, it's a difficult situation, and it isn't at all that my position of Andrew has changed. I'm still very angry with what happened with the interview with Cassie J in 2017 and so forth. Yes, it will be interesting to see what happens down the track, but there is potentially that opportunity. Yes,
Yeah.
be interesting to see what Andrew has to say down the track.
If he ever hears of this, please touch base with either Robert or myself.
That's right. Yes.
We might be straight to the point and curt, but you've got to understand where that's coming from. But we would be interested to.
Well, no, you go on.
No, you're right. I'm trying to think of words. It's not coming out. I'm not
we'll
educated.
be honest with him, and we would give him an opportunity to be honest with us. We know that these problems exist. Most people deny these problems exist. We at least know they exist. We would listen to him, and he would hopefully listen to us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that was basically what I was going to say. I just couldn't think of words.
That's all right. Did you have any other examples to give? Because otherwise I've got another example of a quite serious false allegation that happened overseas that I was going to relate the situation. But
no, because this one I'm interested in, because we spoke about this before the show started.
Exactly, and I said to Nat, I'll explain it on camera so she doesn't know about the specific situation. So about a year ago, 18 months ago, there was an allegation made in Cyprus. It was in the media here, but not very much. But we tracked it. So a British woman who was in Cyprus. There's some question about whether she was working in Cyprus or whether she was just there with her holiday with her family. Her family did seem to be there at the time, but she may have been working there in a bar. Anyway, she made an allegation that 12 Israeli men had gang raped her. And she went to the Cypriot police. The Cypriot police arrested all 12 Israeli men. The men's names were released in their home country of Israel. They were held in custody for a few days. They were then released as it became clear that the story just wasn't holding water. They were released in a few groups. There were a few reasons why the Cypriot police realised that it was that the accusations weren't true. One, for example, now to be clear here, these 12 Israeli men didn't necessarily know each other. They actually had travelled to Cyprus previously. I believe they were all staying in the same hotel, but they travelled to Cyprus in 3 different groups, and they didn't necessarily even know each other beyond being of the same nationality. One of the Israeli men was actually in bed with his girlfriend at the time that the allegation supposedly he raped this woman. And I'll be getting to her name in a moment. And after he was arrested, his girlfriend went straight down to the police station and showed some video actually they had which I think they'd recorded while they were just in bed talking or whatever. And it still took a while for them to be released. And there was still, even after there was evidence that the accusation was false, there was the Cypriot police still considered charging some of the men. So anyway. So what transpired, at least we know from public sources, is that of the 12 men, a number of them, I think around about 9, had never actually met her. 3 of the men had consensual sex with her. Some Israeli sources claim that she had consensual sex with another 3 men who were never identified. That's what the rape kit found, semen from 6 men. And only 3 of them were linked so there was definitely 3 men from that group of 12 who had sex with her. Anyway, they were all eventually released and allowed to return to Israel. And the woman, whose name is Freya Heath, was subsequently charged and convicted of a number of offences in Cyprus. Not necessarily to do with. I actually should look up the exact offences, but it wasn't. It wasn't sort of a particularly serious offence. She's actually returned to the UK now, I believe. But anyway, the media has been very reluctant to mention her name. Now, initially, of course, the media thought she was the mass media thought that she was the victim. Of course, they didn't put her name in the reports. But even after it became clear that she had made a false allegation against 12 men, the media has, to this day, still declined to mention her name. Her name is, of course, Freya Heath. Now, to be very clear here, there are no orders in any country prohibiting the release of her name. There are no orders in the UK, there are no orders in Israel, and there are no orders where I am in Australia. It is perfectly legal to say her name, which is Freya Heath. Now, A Voice for Men was in contact with Israelis and that we know, Israeli MRAs, and they were able to provide us with some insider information on that and some information that hadn't hit the public sources. And so we actually broke the news of her name on A Voice for Men, and it was then picked up by a number of other men's rights and anti-feminist sources, sites, and published. But so Wiki for Men has a timeline. There are other timelines around that are more detailed, but Wiki for Men has a timeline under the Freya Heath article. I received an email as a manager of managing editor of Wiki for Men from someone who purported to be Freya Heath's solicitor, telling me to take down the article and citing a European law. Now, I'm afraid I can't recall the name of the law right now, but basically it was a law to provide consumer protection for people dealing with European companies. It's been quite big news over the last couple of years in IT circles. And so gives individuals the right to order companies to remove their information. European companies will have to then remove that information. Of course, it only applies if there's a customer relationship. So, of course, it was silly for the solicitor to tell me to take down Freya Heath's article on the basis of this law, because it doesn't apply. I had no customer relationship with Freya Heath or any other sort of relationship with her. So anyway, the article's right there on Wiki for Men. You can, if you type in Freya Heath into any search engine, you'll come up with that. Wiki for Men, A Voice for Men, and a few other sites. But anyway, the Israeli men returned home. They were subject to and continue to be subject to harassment in their home country, and their names were blasted across papers in Israel. So there was no privacy or anything for them. Anyway, Freya Heath was eventually convicted, spent some time in Cyprus, and I believe has returned to the UK now.
Yeah, but this has spent some time. Now, forgive me, I really cannot remember the names of these men, but there was on 2 occasions where there was false allegations of rape. The victim then withdrew the complaint, and subsequently, because of harassment, because it was the label was on these gentlemen, 2 separate occasions, 2 separate women. They got nothing to do with each other. The men committed suicide because they were still labelled the rapist.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one occasion where it was a 19-year-old boy. At 19, you're a man, but as a mother now, at 19, you're still a boy. Where a year after he committed suicide, his mother committed suicide because her heart was ripped out about her son.
Yes.
On both of these occasions, nothing happened to these women that put across the allegations of the rape. Where's at the very minimum, where's the manslaughter charge? Because these men have committed suicide over their lives.
Yes. It reminds me of the Kevin Ibbs story as well, actually. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
It might be one. I honestly, you could throw a million names at me and I could not. pinpoint which name it was.
So Kevin Ibbs was also known as the 32nd rapist here in Australia. He had consensual sex with a woman, and during intercourse, the woman withdrew consent, and he claimed that he had stopped having intercourse immediately. She claimed that he had continued for some time. He was subsequently convicted and sentenced to 4 years imprisonment, which I believe he actually served most of that time, or all that time. Anyway, what transpired, though, is that the woman was a friend of his ex-wife. They were all living in the house together, and the two women had cooked it up as a way of getting him out of the house. And so eventually he was completely exonerated, not because over the 30 seconds, but over the fact that it was shown to be a false accusation. And but anyway, he estimated his financial losses at over $1 million as he'd lost a business. And a number of years after it all happened, he was basically left penniless. He received something like $25,000 compensation from the government. He subsequently took his own life. Anyway, so
I don't think people really understand the consequences of what they do. You know, it's okay to tell a lie. You know, does my butt look big in these jeans? No, honey, of course not. We all lie, and I've shown examples, and I'll use myself because I believe I'm the perfect example. I'm famous for telling truth, and if I'm asked something, I'll answer it honestly. I've got no filter, but I still don't say 98% of what's in my head. So if I know it's going to antagonize someone, if I know it's going to hurt someone, I would rather just sort of go, no, it's okay, and walk away than actually stand up and say something. If I see something's wrong, that's when I stand up. I pick my battles. So those sort of situations, fine. But if you blatantly make something up to just crap on somebody for whatever reason,
it was all about getting him out of the house. That was it.
It was just ask him to leave.
Yeah. Instead of
get him a victim. There's 100 things that you could do, but there's that. There's the lie just to get him out of the house, where he's gone to jail, and I'm sorry. This is actually a thorn in my side. As a woman, if you're with somebody, whether it's a one-night stand or a 50-year relationship, and you're having sex with somebody, you can turn and say, "Oh, that hurts," but don't say, "Okay, I've changed my mind. Stop. If you don't stop, it's rape." I have a problem with that.
We should definitely have an episode on consent, because consent is a big topic today. A lot of people don't know the laws. I think we should absolutely, let's soon. I don't know if we might have something else planned for next time, but we should definitely have an episode on consent.
I think, I've got to touch base with a couple of people. We hopefully get it done next week. But yeah, I think these two women have done something that on the same occasion have anged me two completely different ways. Because consent's on the table. Yes, let's go and do it and have a good time, and then go, no, stop. Different story, different topic.
Exactly. I think we should wait for another day for that one, because that is I've got quite a lot to say on the topic of consent and the law. So I think that would be an interesting topic for another day. And we have gone over half an hour.
Yeah, but we've done good this week. But what we did really good. I do want to point out that Ashley has commented saying, please, prosecution's sole job role is to seek prosecution.
What was that? Sorry, what was the I didn't see that comment.
So Ashley, I'll put up underneath you.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Yeah, that's yeah, I see your point. Yeah. So I'm a former police officer, for those who don't know, former Queensland police officer. I resigned in 1999, so it was a long time ago, right? But I got to see the police from how the system works from the inside. And it is interesting, actually, because I saw that there is this conflict. On the one hand, the job of the police is to investigate offences and rule out. They're meant to investigate an offence. If there's no case to answer, rule it out. Otherwise, proceed to prosecution. But at the same time, the focus is very much on prosecution. And there are cases where I felt at times that potentially people were pushing things more, not in any way changing evidence or anything along those lines, but their focus was too much towards prosecution. And it's actually the case internally that a successful prosecution, what they call a prosecution index, can benefit people's careers. So that is the focus, and I'm not in any way suggesting any sort of corruption there. Merely that honest officers were tending to focus on prosecution, whereas I thought a lot of the time you should really be focusing on that investigation and rather than focusing on trying to get that conviction. So anyway, yes, it is a problem I think within our system that does occur. There are multiple steps. If the system's working properly, there are places where people are supposed to the system is supposed to catch mistakes. Okay, obviously it doesn't always succeed. There's something called a reasonable prospect of a conviction, and the state isn't supposed to proceed to a court case if there's not a reasonable prospect of conviction. Now, if we look at cases, now the UK is a good example of this. The UK, the London Metropolitan Police, were having sexual assault case after sexual assault case after sexual assault case collapse. And the reason that was occurring is because they were pushing them toward these matters towards court without a reasonable prospect of conviction. Now, Mark Pearson, who I had the opportunity to meet in London and I've kept in touch with via Facebook, Mark Pearson was accused of sexual assault. I'm not sure what the exact charge was in the UK, but it was essentially a sexual assault charge. He was charged. I think he waited a year before it went to court. The jury found him not guilty in 90 minutes. Now, he's received, I believe, an apology from the prosecutor since, but there clearly was no reasonable prospect of conviction in that case, and that's been going on in the UK a lot, and to a lesser extent elsewhere. There is this problem, and if the system's working properly, then miscarriages of justice should be caught. But as we know, there've been plenty of cases where men particularly have been pushed through the system, and in many cases convicted, and when they shouldn't have been.
Okay, great. We did want to keep it to 30 minutes, but just 8 minutes over. Ashley has responded, say, I have great respect for operational officers. Prosecution has a role to prosecute. Thank you for your discussion.
Thank you, and I'm happy to chat with him later on if he wants to continue the conversation.
Yeah, I'll get you in contact with Ashley.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Well, good. Well, that's it for tonight, I guess.
That's it.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Okay, bye.